Story 1. A friend and a boy I had known since first grade drove about 8 or 9 hours to visit a friend who had moved away and was feeling depressed. They planned to surprise him, but he called to say he had found a way to get a plane ticket to return to them, even though they were already 14 hours into the road trip. They turned around, and when they were about 45 minutes from home, they got into a bad accident. The friend who had moved away died at the scene. The boy I knew from first grade watched his best friend bleed out next to him, upside down in his car. The injured friend had long hair, and the paramedics initially thought he was female. My first grade friend desperately tried to tell them he was a boy, to give his name, and to call his family. He was pronounced dead before the ambulance even left. My first grade friend came back to school after just under 2 months with a 16-inch scar, about 1 inch wide, running up the back of his arm. They had been in the school band together. The hallways were bleak for months, probably for the rest of the year. He sat with us at lunch and tried to be normal, but we all knew he was not the same. They were good people. Even though only one of them died, it was as if both were gone that day because the survivor was never the same. I do not think he makes music anymore. I had known them both for almost 10 years when it happened. It was the first time someone my age had died, and it was very sobering. Nobody is immortal, but you do not expect someone to be ripped from existence so quickly. Story 2. He developed a conscience midway through college after gaining 50 pounds and losing his starting quarterback position. He checked into rehab for alcoholism and made amends with almost everyone he had bullied in high school. I ran into him in my hometown last year and we had a pleasant chat. People can change. Story 3. Unfortunately, a cheerleader from my school was in a four-wheeler accident that left her in an almost vegetative state. Through years of hard work on her part, she has regained a little more independence. However, she will never be exactly the same as she was before the accident. It is sad and shocking how quickly life can change because of an accident. Story 4. They went out drinking on a Saturday night. He drove home and slammed into a brick wall at 40 miles per hour. If I remember correctly, the passenger barely survived, but the driver died on impact. Story 5. The captain of the football team underwent surgery his senior year. I was 13 and on the middle school team. His younger brother and I were very close, so I was around him a lot. I looked up to him like an older brother. He drove me to early practices, was very smart, dated a cheerleader, and had not a mean bone in his body. For a 13-year-old, he was my hero. After his surgery, he became hooked on painkillers and later switched to heroin. He was arrested multiple times for theft and drug possession. This went on for years. I would always ask my friend from middle school how he was doing. It never got better. He died last year. I miss my hero. Thank you for all your support. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please ask for help. My private messages are always open. Story 6. 3 popular kids went swimming in a quarry. Only 2 came out. It was tragic because the one who died was popular for all the right reasons. He was a genuinely good person. I was the strange kid, but his locker was right next to mine, and he was friendly every day to everyone. Story 7. I do not know that his life really fell apart. His home life had been terrible all along, but the incident changed how people saw him. I went to a small school, so there were not many divisions between students. When you only have about 40 kids in a grade, popular is relative. A student's mother decided to leave her husband, the student's stepfather. The stepfather, who was known to faculty and considered a good person, stopped by the school to deliver something to his stepson. The secretary gave him a pass to drop it off in class rather than call the student to the office. The stepfather actually had a gun and did not know where the student was, so he was roaming the halls. A friend of the student, who knew how abusive and dangerous the stepfather was, happened to be in the office and alerted everyone. We went on lockdown, the police came, and they arrested the man. We were stuck for a couple of hours while they swept the school. It later came out that the student had been abused for the entire time his mother had been married to the man, and she left only after he started hitting her. Everyone had pretty much always liked the student, but suddenly people felt sorry for him. Teachers let him redo assignments to boost his grades, and people gave him things to help him start over. He became closed off, stopped joking around, and only hung out with 3 people. He was known as the abused student with a stepfather who brought a gun to the school, and that reputation was hard to overcome. Story 8. He was an only child, and his father had died when he was 2. He was really happy-go-lucky and popular because he was outgoing, supportive, warm, and kind to everybody without fail. Although he was friends with some of the kids who bullied others, he was the first to tell them to stop if he saw it. When we were 16, his mother, who was one of the nicest women I ever met in our small town, was killed when a tractor trailer drifted into her lane. He dropped out of school, stopped talking to anyone, and refused to let anyone visit him. I have no idea what became of him. Sorry, Jay. I hope your life got better. Story 9. There was a kid I went to high school with almost 20 years ago who was 2 grades ahead of me and seemed like the popular kid. He had a girlfriend, was really funny, decent at sports, and did not seem to have any problems. One day his mother came home to find him lying in the basement with a bullet wound to the head. I was told he had used a shotgun to try to kill himself but had loaded it with birdshot, so he did not die. I now see him walking around town. He cannot speak anymore and walks as if he had a stroke, with one side of his body not working properly. It is really sad, and that is all I can think about whenever I drive around and see him. You never know how people feel inside. You might wish you could be someone else because everything seems perfect, but rarely is that the case. Story 10. My brother was the popular kid in school, loved by everyone. Most of my classmates knew him but did not know we were related because we had different last names until I told them. He started using pills in high school, then moved on to cocaine and heroin. He was in and out of jail and was sometimes sent to rehab instead of serving jail time. He lived in our mom's basement until he was 30. He finally moved out, but my parents still pay his rent. He has been sober for a year. Story 11. A student on the football team sent a girl's nude photos to the entire football team and to a large portion of the students in my grade. He was arrested during class. I haven't seen him since. Story 12. He was made fun of because he wanted to wait to have sex with his new girlfriend, a popular girl, so he gave in and they had sex. It resulted in a teenage pregnancy. Story 13. This guy I used to hang out with in elementary school was overweight, but I had the biggest crush on him. I lost track of him for a few years, but in high school he came back and had lost all the weight. He was athletic and well-liked. I did not talk to him, but he seemed decent. I guess he liked driving recklessly. The year after he graduated, he wrapped his car around a pole. They had to use the jaws of life to pull him from the car, but it was too late. He died on impact. There had been multiple reports that night of people calling the police to complain about his reckless driving around town. I just remember the chubby little boy I used to spend recess with every day. Story 14. He hit and killed a state trooper on the freeway while the officer was out of his car trying to remove debris from the road. Story 15. I'm not sure I would call him the popular kid, but in some circles he was. He was a bit of an arrogant ass in my opinion, but he had money and liked to spread it around. His father was a wealth manager. Many friends, family, and community members were clients. A few years after high school, it came out that his father had embezzled millions. Their entire wealth was taken from friends and family. This rocked him. His father went to jail. He changed his name and became a completely different person. When I saw him after that, I barely recognized him. His personality and even his posture were different. I felt really bad for him. I ended up having a very good talk with him, and I can only imagine what he has gone through. Edit. Many people asked for details about the location and the identities involved. This has clearly happened before. I will not give any more details other than that it did not occur in the United States. Story 16. His parents divorced and he began acting out. He went from earning good grades and participating in clubs to failing academically and using drugs. Story 17. The football star and lead singer of our choir was arrested for raping a freshman. The case divided the school because there was no evidence and he was black and she was white. He was convicted. Years later, she said she had lied at a party to several people. She had been drunk, he had rejected her, and she was angry, so it was her revenge. Even with that statement, they would not reopen the case. She has a happy life with children in a nearby town, and he will be released in 5 years. It is very sad. Story 18. I ran into one of the very popular kids at the local bar when I came home from college. She would never give me the time of day in high school, and I thought she did not even know I existed. She approached me at the bar, very drunk, and said, "Hey, did I go to high school with you?" She then told me she wished she had been nicer to more people in high school, and that she has no idea what she is doing with her life. It feels good to know that she has thought about how she treated people back then. I'm not sure if that is normal or just a coincidence. Story 19. He lost control of his car when he and his best friend were driving to Taco Bell at night. He survived with a fractured collarbone. His friend died on the spot. He had been very close to his friend's parents, and they were close to him as well. He posted on Facebook that he was an idiot and that he was sorry. The deceased friend's sister and parents made it very clear that they did not blame him. It was winter and there was black ice. He was completely sober. Before the accident, he had been a stereotypically popular student in a wholesome way. Afterward, he dropped out of school and became addicted to painkillers. It is not known what happened to him later, but the situation was sad for everyone. Story 20. His best friend turned him in after discovering he had raped someone. Story 21. He sent an explicit video of himself to his girlfriend, and it was leaked to the entire school. Story 22. His dad died. It was terrible. Before that, he had been popular, smart, motivated, a great athlete, and a good person, as much as someone can be at 15. His father had a heart attack in the shower just before they were going to leave for a football game. We heard about it later, and after that everything declined. He became angry, which was expected at first, but then he spiraled deeper and deeper. We did not see him for a while. When I caught up with him later in high school, he had been using drugs to the point that his thinking seemed impaired. It was sad for every reason. Story 23. In 5th grade, our teacher told the class that the popular boy acted out because he did not get enough attention at home. She said it in front of everyone, and he left the room sobbing. My view of him changed that day. We already thought the teacher was a terrible person, and that confirmed it for all of us. Story 24. There was a dangerous cliff, and to keep children away, the locals spread a rumor that it was haunted. Naturally, the cool kids kept going there. Once the group of those supposedly cool kids, for in total, went there, and no one really knows what happened. One boy jumped to his death. The remaining 3 each gave a different account. They had been using drugs. No one was jailed, but all 3 became depressed and eventually spiraled out of control. 2 years later, one overdosed. Another died in a car accident while driving under the influence, and the third committed suicide. Story 25. Her mom was diagnosed with dozens of brain tumors at the beginning of our senior year and died before Christmas. She went from stable, well-off, and beautiful to a wreck, then off the map. After that, we lost 4 students violently, including 2 sisters who were stabbed by their stepfather. Staff quit. Almost no one in our senior class made it. Suicides followed graduation. 1999 was a really tough year for our school. Edit. Thank you for the awards. My inbox is overwhelmed. Rest in peace. This happened in Snoqualmie, Washington, also known as Twin Peaks. I am doing okay these days, despite a rough life. I can't say the same for the classmates I kept up with. Ongoing trauma is that much harder to process when literally everyone around you is grieving too. No one gets a pause long enough between deaths to ever fully heal from any of them. We did our best. 1999 was a messed up year for so many people, and I don't know why. I think about the Offspring song "Kids Aren't Alright" a lot. Story 26. A few of them shot at some tourists in a protected wildlife area. 2 or 3 of them went to prison. There were no injuries as far as I ever heard, but it was still really stupid. I had moved out of town by that point, so any information I got was hearsay. Update. Some people managed to dig the report up. It happened in Ely, in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. 6 men were involved. It turned out that the 2 kids I thought were involved were not. A different popular kid was. Jay Olson received 3 years for it. Information is scarce and piecemeal. Story 27. He became a second-grade teacher and was later convicted of crimes against his students. He is now serving a long prison sentence. Story 28. He was beaten by the people he had bullied and died from his injuries. Story 29. One of the most popular girls at my high school died in her sleep from a blood clot in the middle of the school year. Story 30. One kid at school was popular only because he liked to start trouble and bully everyone. Most people pretended to be his friends to avoid being victimized. One day he tried that on the wrong kid and was beaten so badly that he started crying. I think it was a win for the bully because it gave him a wake-up call. He became less of a bully and is now quite humble. Story 31. The star quarterback about 2 years ahead of me has been given naloxone at least half a dozen times. He might be dead now. I am not sure if that was a problem for him in high school, but I heard he had a serious pain pill habit in college and probably transitioned to heroin afterward. Story 32. He tried to drop his friends to become popular because he had a massive ego, but he ended up losing them and gained nothing in return. Story 33. In 8th grade, there was a very popular student at my school who was the captain of the football team. He was also a severe bully and would beat nerds for no reason at least twice a week. One day he either got drunk or high and jumped off a bridge as a prank. I am not sure how he did not know that the lake he jumped into was full of submerged trees. You can see the branches during the daytime. In any case, I do not think his body was found. Our school held a large memorial for him, but I will always remember him as a bully. Story 34. A rumor circulated that his parents paid a large sum to have rape allegations ignored and to keep him on the football team. No, it never made the news. I am not sure whether the rumors are true because my school tries to keep such stories quiet, and there are too many students to produce a single definitive account. Story 35. He FaceTimed his girlfriend, and she screen recorded him inserting a baseball bat into his anus. Story 36. He was caught with explicit photos of classmates on his phone that those students had not sent him. He became a registered sex offender and attended many court hearings. He was later charged with sexual assault for reasons unrelated to the photos and was convicted. Afterward, no one spoke to him. He soon moved away and was never seen again. Story 37. A very popular cheerleader at my school fell down some stairs, broke her back, and became paralyzed. She has used a wheelchair since then. That is one example. Stairs are not a joke. Story 38. She became pregnant, and a few years later, she moved to another school district. I did not expect this to gain so much attention and did not realize that it is common in most school districts. Story 39. He had a sexual relationship with his best friend's mother. The friend's father had died a few years earlier. When they were caught, the mother was arrested for statutory rape. The friend and her younger siblings had to go live with other family members. He was 17. Story 40. One of the popular students at my school used cocaine in the bathroom. On his way out, he saw a female security guard and put her in a chokehold. That proved to be a huge mistake. She was a gymnast, defended herself, and got him arrested. Story 41. When allegations of his abuse of family members came to light, he became an outcast and was beaten to death. Story 42. I went to high school in a somewhat rural area in Alabama. During my junior year, the county district attorney was coming to give a speech about drunk driving or something like that. It was a few years ago, so I don't exactly remember. An hour before the assembly, everyone was called to the gym and told not to bring anything with us. When we arrived, there were dogs and officers searching students. Everyone was freaked out, but we assumed they had moved the assembly from the auditorium to the gym and wanted to be careful because the speaker was a prominent public figure. After he spoke, the principal told us we couldn't leave the gym. After an hour or so, lunch came and went and people started getting rowdy. So the principal said we would be escorted to the elementary, intermediate, and middle schools for lunch. This is when we started to panic and ask what was going on. But no one would answer. Grade by grade, we were escorted by at least a dozen officers across the school grounds to each of the other schools, given 20 minutes to eat, then promptly escorted back. A few more hours went by and everyone was on edge, but still no one told us what was happening. The principal asked to see a handful of students and then left us there again. We couldn't do anything but sit on the bleachers. If we needed the bathroom, we were escorted by an officer. We couldn't leave for the day, and no one was allowed on the property, so parents could not pick students up. When the school day ended, they still wouldn't let us leave. Students were angry and upset. People had jobs to get to and siblings to pick up. A few students tried to leave but were immediately returned to the bleachers. One student had to be escorted out and arrested because he tried to fight an officer for not letting him go. Finally, after seeing the students get riled up, the principal told us what was going on. A student had left a bomb threat in the girls' bathroom, and a special weapons and tactics team and a bomb squad were searching every inch of the school building. We could not leave until it had been cleared and they found out who did it. The gym went completely silent and everyone sat like that for a few moments. We were all terrified. After about another hour, the principal called a student down and took her outside where she was arrested. It was one of the popular girls and everyone was shocked. But they let us go home, so we suspected it was her. The next morning we found out more. She had disliked the district attorney because he had handled her family's case poorly. She had made a very poorly built explosive device from clay and bullets, hid it in her backpack, and planned to set it off during the assembly. She was arrested and banned from all Alabama public schools. From what I heard, she is still in prison and will be for a long time. Look up Chilton County High School bomb threat to find some news articles. Edit. For anyone pointing out the two local news articles, they are not accurate. They contradict each other, and neither the police nor the school made an official statement. We did not return to class that day, but we did the next day. A device was found, but it was so poorly made it could barely be called a bomb. It was basically clay and a few shotgun shells. The situation was handled poorly by everyone, especially the media. Story 43. When I was in 5th grade in the 1960s, there was a kid in our class named Lawrence. He was the best student, always finishing math tests well before anyone else, and the best athlete, picked first for every team sport. One day during class, a woman from the principal's office came in, whispered something to our teacher, and the two of them escorted Lawrence into the hallway. A few minutes later, our teacher returned and told us that Lawrence's father had been killed in Vietnam when the helicopter he was in was shot down. Lawrence never returned to our school. My older brother was in Vietnam at that time. He returned safely. That was the day the full reality of the war hit me. Story 44. Soon after high school, he was one of the most well-liked students. Everyone admired him. He even attended the funeral of a student he did not know outside of school after that student died by suicide. His father became very ill after his freshman year of college and was hospitalized for months before needing an extremely serious procedure to save his life, so he took the next semester off to care for him. He also lost one of his best friends to addiction and a close family friend. Life really took a toll on him. He is quieter than he used to be, but still the same good person. Story 45. When my grandmother died, I had lived with her my entire life. I was 16 and didn't know which way was up. She held on for weeks, and when she became conscious, she muttered, "I can't leave. Stu can't fly on his own yet." She died the following day, surrounded by friends and family. I was high as hell in the next room. I threw away the next 5 to 6 years on drugs and never had a good mental foundation afterward. All the friends I had drifted away. I acted like a mess, and everyone slowly distanced themselves. I dropped out of school, became known as the troubled drug kid, did not pursue college, and took a job that gave me an excuse to live at home and keep using. Eventually, I had a heart attack in a Walgreens parking lot at 7A. When I was 19, my entire family enabled me, or maybe I was just an amazing actor. I don't know. I started skating in parking garages as an outlet. I stopped using drugs, bought a helmet and some gloves, started entering races and events, and over time built a new support network. Before I knew it, I had real friends, not actors. I moved out of the city a few years ago and now live in a small mountain town. The parking garages were replaced by mountains, the air got cleaner, and most importantly, I stopped smoking cigarettes 9 months ago. Story 46. I heard this from my brother. A popular resident and jerk with fully paid scholarships got drunk on Halloween, crashed through the French doors of someone's house, and passed out on their couch while covered in blood and vomit and still dressed like Superman. A horrified family found him after they returned from their Halloween party. He was arrested and lost his scholarships. As far as I know, he did not crash a car into the building. He was blackout drunk, trying to walk home. He either stumbled through the window or threw something through it and then charged through the glass. That is where the blood came from. He lost his scholarships because of the arrest. I am not sure whether it affected his ability to graduate on time or whether the incident happened on or near campus. Story 47. 6'3" football player, drug dealer, and general shitbag was arrested 2 weeks before going to college. His family was very poor, but he had a full ride despite his obvious drug habits, selling to middle schoolers, and other unsavory extracurricular activities. Somehow his record was swept under the rug in time for him to still attend, much like his high school grade point average. Halfway through the first semester, he was shot in the gut during a drug deal that went wrong. He survived, and last I heard he was accepted by another college. I have no idea how he graduated high school, let alone how he got away with the rest of it. I guess in the South being good at football takes you most anywhere. As far as I know, he has not fallen apart yet, but it seems to be only a matter of time. Story 48. I expected extremely embarrassing stories about the popular kids that would make them look like fools, but these all just break my heart. The Bat one, however, meets my expectations. Story 49. He told people he was bringing a gun to the active shooter drill. It didn't help that the drill was scheduled for the day after the Parkland massacre. Story 50. She was in a near-death car accident and came out covered in severe scars, with a wobble when she walked and with cognitive impairment. She tried to fight me after our shoulders bumped in the hallway. It was an accident, but it was nice to see that she remained a massive cunt. Story 51. The most popular girl at our school remained popular from middle school through high school. She came from a very wealthy family and lived in a lavish house with horses, tanning beds, and a helicopter. She became cheer captain, and during our senior year she became pregnant. All of her friends immediately abandoned her, and she ended up dropping out of school. I was never part of the popular circle, so she probably did not know I existed, but I always felt sorry for her. Years later, at our high school reunion, I learned she had undergone extensive plastic surgery while battling severe depression. She was so embarrassed by how she looked that she rarely left her house. Teresa, wherever you are, I hope things have gotten better for you. Story 52. When they graduated, they realized that life is much more than school. It was even harder for those who had to struggle through college on their own. Story 53. He was a good friend of mine and a kind person. He was the wealthy, popular student, but also the nicest and most relaxed person you could meet. Right after high school, his parents divorced. He became heavily involved with cocaine, went to rehab, and gained a significant amount of weight. He is on my Facebook and seems to be doing okay these days. Story 54. He was popular, good-looking, athletic, and involved in sports. Many girls liked him, and although I did not know him, he seemed like a nice person. He became a girls' coach in a nearby town. Apparently, he taught those girls more than sports. He was arrested on charges of statutory rape last year, and I believe more than one student was involved. Story 55. One of my best friends was driving home when he struck a tree, and his car caught fire. He was an Eagle Scout valedictorian of my senior class, and competed in state in cross-country and track. I went to a small high school where everyone knew everyone, so we all took it pretty hard. Miss you, Jay. Story 56. Our small-town star quarterback was arrested a year after graduating when 2 marijuana joints were found under the driver's seat of his car. It was the 1960s, so the offense was a felony. He served 1 year in county jail, 5 years on probation, and ended up with a felony on his record. I knew he got high sometimes. I did too, but the arrest terrified me and many others. The quarterback left his car at the curb and went into a coffee shop. When he came out, 5 police officers surrounded him, searched his car, and found 2 joints under the seat. My friends and I were pretty sure he was set up and that the joints had been planted by another man who had ridden with him that day and left town less than a week later. It was the end of the quarterback's college sports scholarship dreams. I left town a few months later and did not return for years. It still felt awful. Story 57. One man was killed in a car crash in the Florida Keys. Another was sexually involved with a teacher. A few were expelled after a prank. Story 58. After a few years, he moved to California to pursue acting. He was not very good and has now returned to Texas to work at a temporary staffing agency. Story 59. Her boyfriend of 3 years was caught having an affair with her mother, and she was charged with having sex with a minor. Her parents divorced, and she went to live with her father. She did not attend school for about a month. Story 60. My friend, who was always very popular, was murdered by a spree killer in Thailand. The killer befriended him, then killed both him and his mother, and used their credit cards afterward. Photographs of decomposed body parts were shown as evidence during the trial, making it one of the most grisly cases ever. It still makes me tragically sad to this day. Source: Wikipedia. John Martin Scripps. Story 61. He faced a sexual assault charge. He was in my friend group. I considered him one of my best friends. Looking back, we all put up with a lot from him. His girlfriend at the time was also friends with all of us. We were at an electronic dance music concert, and his girlfriend and I were in a booth chatting. She seemed off and I asked what was wrong. She started crying and struggled to speak. But after some gentle prodding and a comforting hand on hers, she began telling me about the abuse they inflicted on each other. The most recent incident was her being raped by him during a fight. I went to her side of the table and hugged her as tightly as I could. I went to get another beer for both of us, and he confronted me. He had been watching us talk and demanded that I tell him what we had said. I refused and began to walk away. However, he grabbed my wrist, pulled me close, and, through gritted teeth, said, "Whatever she told you is a fucking lie." He also tried to fight me outside my house later that night after an awkward car ride. I, being drunk, called him out on my Snapchat story. About 20 women replied, sharing their own experiences with him. The ex-girlfriend took him to court. After nearly 2 years, the case was dropped on the condition that he attend therapy and drug counseling. The last I saw, he was getting drunk and using cocaine while on probation. He still has a severe cocaine problem as far as I know. Story 62. Since everyone is talking about people dying, I was the popular kid whose life fell apart in seconds and I didn't die. I was a good student and an athlete, but I sold marijuana. One day I was arrested in front of my advanced placement history class and escorted out of the school between periods while everyone was in the hallway. I was expelled, kicked out of my parents' house, and kept getting in trouble. As far as everyone I grew up with was concerned, I had ended up in jail. My life spiraled, but then I joined the Marines, which helped me. I was badly injured and then had to fight the Department of Veterans Affairs for 10 years to receive my benefits. It was a rough 15 years. One day I decided to try coding and realized it was the most fulfilling thing I have ever done. I now write software for banks and live by the beach in Southern California. Everyone still thinks I'm in jail, laughing out loud. Holy cow, everyone. I have never received an award, let alone 5. I hope I have answered everyone's questions and responded to all direct messages. You have no idea how much your responses mean to me. Thank you. Story 63. He circulated the explicit photos of a woman he had been having sex with. He was a jerk, and I don't think many people outside his circle felt sorry for her. Story 64. Teacher here. A high school football star yelled racist remarks at a player from another school while stopped at a traffic light. But he did not know the person he was yelling at was recording. The person who recorded posted the video on Twitter. The individual in the video is clearly identifiable, and Twitter users reacted angrily. The player went from being a quarterback and team captain with several offers from Division I schools to having no offers. I am sure he will still go to college, and hopefully he can learn from this and change his outlook. Story 65. I know a man who received explicit photos from a 7th grader during the summer between 8th and 9th grade. Apparently she had sent them to many people and everyone knew it was wrong, but for some reason he was found out and is now on a sex offender registry. I have many friends who know him, so I doubt he intended wrongdoing. I really feel bad for him. Story 66. He gambled on a fart and lost. He went from a jerk-ass hotshot to a hot shit. Story 67. One of the prettiest girls in our senior class came to school on Wednesday and told everyone she had brain cancer. The doctor had told her and her parents that Tuesday afternoon. She went downhill quickly and died before Thanksgiving. Her twin brother broke down and never recovered. Story 68. She was applying to college, and during a campus tour she met a black man. They did not do anything, but she took a photo with him and posted it on her private Instagram account, writing derogatory, highly sexual, and racist comments, including the phrase, jungle cock. She was not accepted and became reclusive afterward. Story 69. When he sent an inappropriate photo to a girl and she posted it on Twitter, everyone started calling him soft, and his mother decided to homeschool him for the rest of high school. He had been popular, but he was also a bully to many students. He could dish it but could not take it. Story 70. It was after high school, about 6 months after he graduated. He reportedly stole nitrous oxide from a dentist's office. As he was running away, he was struck by a 16-wheeler and died a few seconds later. Story 71. He was in a car wreck and died. They brought him back after a few minutes, but he was not the same person. It was the night of a dance and we were all meeting at the river to party afterward. He had slammed into a tree near his house. I do not mean this in a purely illustrative way. He would not even go by his old nickname. I do not know how to explain it, and it is very difficult to put into words, but my friend died and someone else seemed to take over. He later became heavily involved with drugs and eventually died while driving to work. As a side note, and I do not know if he was messing with me, I asked him what it was like to die. All he would tell me and anyone else was, "You have to go through it to understand." Story 72. He drugged and raped a girl and circulated pictures of her unconscious, nude body around the school. Many people defended him, but even if he did not rape her, he is still the type of person who records and photographs girls during sex without their consent and shares those images. He did this to several girls. I remember him bragging about hiding his phone in a shoebox set to record and showing the video to a group of other boys. That behavior is characteristic of rapists. It is sad that so many people refuse to call a spade a spade. The girl ended up changing schools. Her attacker suffered reputational harm but was never convicted. Story 73. A kid always bullied my son. My son has been a boxer since he was 5 years old. The bully hit him in the head with his lunch tray. My son knocked out 8 of the bully's teeth, and we won in court mainly because the judge agreed that my son's response was reflexive, even though it was somewhat excessive. The bully came from a moderately poor family, and they could not afford to fix his teeth until he was 17. This happened when he was 12. No one is afraid of a bully missing his front teeth, and no one wanted to be friends with him anymore. My son reconnected with the former bully when the bully was doing an internship at a technology company. The bully thanked my son for putting him in his place, saying it forced him to fully dedicate himself to school. They are really good friends now, and I see him sometimes when I visit. It is funny how things play out. Story 74. When the entire varsity football team almost faced rape charges because they allegedly initiated new players by inserting broom handles into other players' bodies, the junior varsity team did the same, but they were the ones who attracted media attention. Search for Damascus High School. It will appear. Story 75. There is an Instagram account run by a student that posts videos of fights in our school district. One video showed 2 girls fighting. One girl's hair was grabbed and she was struck repeatedly in the back of the head until she escaped and walked away crying. Story 76. The hottest girl in high school, captain of the cheerleading team, who drove a Bayerisch Motoren Werke coupe and had the body of a Greek goddess, married after college and had 3 children. It turned out her husband was a drug addict and went to rehab. She now sells ear candles claiming healing benefits through a multi-level marketing platform. I saw her at a bar one night. She was so embarrassed that I remembered her. Midway through the conversation, she walked out, and I have not seen her since. Damn how things change. Story 77. She had a boyfriend at 13 who was 18. She became pregnant at 19 by him and he left. She now has 5 children, each by different fathers, none of whom stuck around. Her parents kicked her out after the first child because they were strict Christians and promoted abstinence-only sex education as the only form of contraception. She was not a nice person. She would bully, berate, and laugh at anyone who did not have a picture-perfect life like she did. Her parents were a lawyer and a medical doctor who promoted abstinence-only sex education in the United Kingdom. They were members of the Parent-Teacher Association. Her clique had a similar upbringing and their parents had similar standing in the community. Her picture-perfect life ended the moment the pregnancy test came back positive. She had hoped her boyfriend would propose and they would marry quickly so the pregnancy could be explained as a premature birth. Instead, he laughed in her face and left. I hated her in school and suffered her bullying, but nobody deserves that. Story 78. If anyone wants to hear a story that goes the other way, in 5th grade there was a class clown, a dorky kid who knew lots of people but did not have close friends. He was definitely not one of the cool kids. One day I was coming back from choir and heard blood-curdling shrieking from our classroom. The kid ran out of class. He had caught a ring or a fingernail on the doorway and partially degloved his finger. It was gruesome. For whatever reason, all the popular boys thought it was the most impressive thing they had ever seen. Overnight, he became very popular, and even as the high school clown, he remained popular until we graduated. Story 79. This is a story. There was a boy who was very popular at school. He was between the regular popular kids who did all right academically and the ones who got into a lot of trouble. There was a large group of them and most were not too bad. Only the roadmen kids who caused trouble were intimidating. This boy had a pretty normal time at school. Most people liked him and he had a good reputation. Then, when we were about 16, my girlfriend at the time received a video message on Facebook from him. The video showed him masturbating and moaning. We soon learned that he had sent this video to every girl in the school, asking them to share it and bait him out on Facebook. A few of my friends even put it on their timelines. I have no idea why he embarrassed himself like that. It was not a prank or a dare. He turned out to be a proper weirdo. He never lived that down, and I do not think anyone saw him the same way after that. The worst part was that his penis was below average in size and slightly curved. He was not very attractive either, so none of it worked in his favor. What a dickhead. Story 80. He began humping a younger student on the school bus to the song My Humps. The child began crying and told his parents. The popular student was expelled 1 or 2 weeks before 8th grade graduation. Story 81. Many of the popular students from my high school later became rappers. A couple of them are deceased now. Story 82. In 6th grade, a girl with a tough girl reputation constantly bullied others. A teacher asked me to be friends with another girl who had many troubles at home, so I started hanging out with her. She was really sweet but very shy. I noticed she was an obvious target for the bully, which made me angry. One day, while we were in line at the water fountain, the bully made a snarky remark and pushed to the front. Her friends giggled. I turned to my new friend, who was holding a small can of cola. She said she wanted to pour it over the bully's head. So I encouraged her to do it while the bully was drinking from the fountain. It was glorious, exactly like a movie. The bully's mouth and eyes were wide with shock as cola ran down her. Every drop. The whole school saw. Only the bully was suspended, and I never saw my friend harassed by her again. Marvelous. Story 83. I am not a student at that high school, but I am well connected to the situation. This past Halloween, 2 high school seniors decided to attend a local party dressed as a slave owner and an enslaved person. The enslaved person was in full blackface. Pictures circulated on Snapchat, reached Twitter, and went viral. Both students left the school, apparently moving away to live with other family members. One of them was a talented lacrosse player who lost his scholarship. Story 84. He joined the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria a few months after high school and died 2 years later in Syria. He was a completely normal and funny guy. Then he went to live with his father and became radicalized. I heard he married his high school sweetheart in Syria and had children there. They all seem to be dead now, though I am not sure about the children. I also read that he was quite popular in Syria within the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. When you search his name, there is a forum about fighters from my country where someone mentions his popularity. Sad either way. Story 85, he came out. At least he is happy now. I see him with his boyfriend in the halls sometimes. They look great together. Story 86. When I made him cry, he had been bullying me at school every day for nearly 3 years for two things I had no control over: my poverty and my physical appearance. I badly needed braces my family could not afford, and I had had enough. I discovered that he was adopted, so I told him in front of our classmates that his real parents probably wanted no part of him because they could tell he would grow up to be nothing but a piece of shit. I got in trouble for that, but it was worth it to see him cry for once, and he left me alone after that. Story 87. I wouldn't exactly say her life fell apart, but a woman bit a man's genitals during a sexual encounter and caused bleeding. She then injured another man who required stitches. Now the men tend to avoid her. Story 88. The popular girl kept talking badly about me for no reason. She blamed me for somebody's suicide and encouraged her friends to do the same. I befriended her friends. They ended up liking me and told her, "I don't know why you hate her. She's the nicest girl ever." Since then, they have realized what a terrible person she really was. Story 89. A younger cousin of mine played football in high school. He was wickedly smart and an overall sweetheart. He had planned to become a dentist until he suffered too many concussions. Now his attention and motivation have declined, and every time I see him, usually about 6 months apart, his personality is different. The last time I saw him, he dressed like a cowboy and spoke with a cowboy accent. Story 90. He was my first friend. We grew apart over time, but not by much because the class was small. He became very arrogant and rude. Then he suddenly suffered a brain hemorrhage. He recovered and became nicer to everyone. Story 91. He was a popular student at my school. One day in high school, a rumor began to spread that the reason he had a brand new Mustang was because of an alleged incident with an older man at his house. I do not know how true it was. After the rumor, he became extremely angry, started attacking people, and developed a serious addiction to opiates. Eventually, he ended up in prison for assault. Last I heard, he overdosed on OxyContin. Story 92. I attend a small cooperative. One of the more popular students was the Spanish teacher's son. He bullied the girls a lot. He insulted my sister's weight, hair, and face, and criticized other girls for their clothes and intelligence. But he was funny, so he was popular with the other boys. One night, his mother died peacefully in her sleep from cardiac arrest. Everyone was sad. She was a great woman, and I think her death opened her son's eyes. He began apologizing to all the girls and has not been as happy or confident as he used to be. Now that he has made amends, I no longer want to punch him. I almost want to give him a hug. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.